Microsoft had great news for Nvidia stock investors as the company announced that it plans to spend $80 billion this fiscal year building out data centers optimized for artificial intelligence. In this video, I'll go through that announcement from Microsoft and why it's such great news for Nvidia stock investors specifically. So let's take a look.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
So Bloomberg announced or covered the Microsoft Corporation plans to spend $80 billion this fiscal year building out data centers, which underscores the intense capital requirements of artificial intelligence. Of course, a large component of this $80 billion in spending will go to Nvidia and its graphic processing units that help facilitate calculations or computing for artificial intelligence. Additionally, that $80 billion in spending in the current fiscal year would be a 60% increase from the previous year, which ended in June 2024, where Microsoft spent more than $50 billion on capital expenditures, where the vast majority was related to server farm construction fueled by demand for artificial intelligence. So not only did Microsoft spend $50 billion last year on artificial intelligence or the data centers optimized for AI, but they're going to increase that by 60% or $30 billion up to $80 billion. Now, I've been covering this for a couple of years now, and this is what I've been saying. This is why I've been so bullish on Nvidia stock, is because these companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta Platforms, Alphabet, have all indicated that they've spent tens of billions, in some cases $50 billion on artificial intelligence. And they've all also indicated that they're going to be spending more over the next few years, not less or slowing. They've all indicated that they're going to be spending more on AI. And so that's the biggest risk for Nvidia, was that this spending, and I'm going to share with you the details of precisely how much these large cloud providers mean for Nvidia. The risk was that they would slow down or decrease these purchases, and so Nvidia would experience a sharp rise in revenue and then a sharp decline in revenue. But what I've been informing investors is what I've been hearing from these customers of Nvidia, and they keep saying things like this, where they're going to increase their spending. They're spending $50 billion, they're going to increase it to $80 billion. And so if those businesses are ramping up their spending on AI, then that's good news for Nvidia, because that's going to keep the gravy train rolling. So if you look at Nvidia's business in the most recent quarterly update, the data center segment, they delivered $30.77 billion in revenue in the most recent quarter, and that was up by 112% from the same quarter last year. And if you look at the data center revenue as a percentage of total revenue, it's 31 billion compared to 35 billion in total revenue. So this segment of the business is driving overall revenue growth for Nvidia. It's the largest part of the business by far, and it's driving the fastest growth of the business by far. That's what you like to see, right? You like to see the most profitable, most highest percentage revenue part of the business grow at the fastest. And that's what Nvidia is delivering to investors. And this news from Microsoft is continued support for this part of Nvidia's business. Nvidia said that the strong year-over-year increase in revenue was driven for demand for its Hopper computing platform for training and inferencing large language models and other generative AI applications. Now here's the key. Cloud service providers represented approximately 50% of their data center revenue, and the remainder was represented by consumer internet and enterprise companies. So cloud service providers and consumer internet and enterprise companies, these are Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta Platforms. These are the large buyers of Nvidia's products. They're 50% of the buyers of Nvidia's products. And so if they were to indicate that they're cutting spending, then it would be bad news. I would be making the opposite of this video. I would be saying that this was unfortunate news for Nvidia stock investors, but it was actually great news because they indicated they're going to ramp up their spending by 60%. And if Microsoft is ramping up their spending by 60% all the way up to 80 billion, then the competitors of Microsoft, which are Amazon and Alphabet and others, they're going to want to increase their spending because they're not going to want to fall behind Microsoft in their investments in AI because it's such a strategically important category. So the strong year-over-year growth was driven by all customer types from both computing and networking, and demand for the Hopper infrastructure, which is the previous generation technology, and the H200, the Blackwell, which is the next generation, grew significantly. They went on to say that they completed a successful change in the Blackwell for their next data center architecture that improved yields in terms of production output. And then the Blackwell production shipments are scheduled to begin in the fourth quarter of 2025 and ramp into this upcoming fiscal year. Both Hopper and Blackwell systems have supply constraints, and demand for Blackwell is expected to exceed supply for several quarters in 2026. I love to hear that from a business that I'm following and recommending. And the things I love to hear is that demand exceeds supply, and at the same time, they're ramping up supply. So it's not that demand exceeds supply because they're having struggles with supply. They've been ramping up supply, right? They've demonstrated significant growth in the recent years. But even after all of that significant growth, all of that significant increase in supply, they're still experiencing demand that exceeds supply. That's how strong demand is for Nvidia's products. And we got another piece of evidence in this update that it looks like demand will continue to outpace supply for Nvidia for at least another 3 quarters, I would say. Another 3 quarters, perhaps another 4 quarters, but at least for the next 3 quarters, unless there's some significant change in output or demand, which I don't expect, Nvidia is going to be in great shape. So great news for Nvidia stock investors, to be sure. Hey everyone, so many of you have been asking about my investing strategy, and I'm excited to announce that I've written a book that's available for sale now that describes my 6-step investing framework for evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.